Let me then go into something that came by the Christmas season, and obviously many people will be asking about Isaiah 7, chapter 7, verse 14, correlating to Matthew 1:23. But that one, we've been talking about that for many, many times. But one of the critical things that is raised is that this refers to the virgin birth, and then there is a reference to the lineage of Joseph, with an attempt to attach that to Jesus, to the Davidic lineage. How do you see this, where if there is a lineage, does that mean there is no virgin birth? If there's virgin birth, there is no lineage, and you can't have both of them? And how do you actually ascertain Jewish lineage in the first place? Because at the end of the day, if Jesus is born of a virgin supernaturally, then would he then be viewed as somebody who has a lineage to David?
You're asking a question that's so plain that people frequently miss it, in the way that children, when they listen to nursery rhymes, some of them have very strange words like "rockabye baby," "on the treetop." It's a story about a cradle that falls from a tree. But people don't think about it because they're so familiar with these poems and children's songs, and herein lies the danger. This is so plain. The church initially does not adopt the notion that Jesus was born of a virgin. We could see that from the earliest writings chronologically in the New Testament. So Paul either didn't think it was important enough to mention that Jesus was supernaturally conceived, or really, a lot more likely, he didn't know anything about a virgin birth. And perhaps the myth was floating around, and that's why perhaps he urged people not to pay attention to such myths and so on. The earliest gospel, Mark, also doesn't mention a virgin birth, in truth, because neither the author of Mark nor Paul believed that Jesus was born of a virgin. We only have two books in the Christian Bible, written rather late in the first century, probably around 85, Matthew and Luke, that mention a virgin birth. And the virgin birth is necessary because as the Christian religion is moving into the Gentile arena even more and more, it adopts more and more ideas from the Greco-Roman world that surround it, rather than any possible Jewish origin. When Matthew adopts the idea that Jesus was born to a virgin, and we have an infancy narrative in Matthew 1 and 2, what he does by claiming that Jesus was born to a virgin is, number one, disqualifies him completely from being the Messiah. Because in order to be the Messiah, you have to come from the house of David. Your genealogy is identified by your father's house. Numbers chapter 1. It's really all over the place. That's why in the genealogy it's men that matter, even in the genealogy found in both Matthew 1 and Luke 3. Your tribe identity is passed on in a patrilineal column. Mothers don't matter in this regard. So by claiming that Jesus lacked a human Jewish father, so then it raises staggering problems. Number one, he can't trace his genealogy back to King David. Can't, because the genealogy that we are served up in Matthew chapter 1, essentially the first 16 verses of the book of Matthew, is the genealogy of Joseph, not the genealogy of Jesus. Because Jesus was born to a virgin, then Joseph wasn't his father and could not convey the Davidic house. So whatever you want to think of the genealogy we find in Matthew chapter 1, and it's very problematic for other reasons that are beyond the scope of your question. It's really problematic. It's been played with in ways that are very striking. But what is germane is that we are told by Matthew that this is the genealogy of Joseph, and Joseph was not the father of Jesus, but rather Mary conceived without having had a relationship with Joseph. Joseph's genealogy then is not relevant to Jesus. So that is a huge deal. That's massive. And that's what happens. You get into trouble when you play more and more, when you inculcate ideas, pagan ideas, the idea that the mother of God or the mother of the Savior could not have conceived through a natural means, which is widely known in the Greco-Roman world and beyond. You know, Buddha was said to be born out of a slit in his mother's side. You know, Krishna was not conceived naturally. It's everywhere. So, but the moment you do that, you just utterly sabotage any claim to messiahship. And then why give us the genealogy of Jesus? And not only that, of Joseph, why give us the genealogy of Joseph? And what is the opening passage of the entire New Testament? This is the genealogy of Jesus Christ, son of David, son of Abraham. And then it proceeds to give us a genealogy of Joseph rather than of Jesus. So it's completely, utterly irrelevant. The genealogy is also heavily doctored. This is beyond the scope of your question, but it's heavily doctored, meaning names are extracted, are deleted, because the author of the book of Matthew, we don't know who wrote it, and if people say they know, they don't know, but whoever wrote it extracted a whole bunch of names so that you can have 3 sets of 14. I write about this in volume 2 of Let's Get Biblical. So therefore, the genealogy is irrelevant. There is no prophecy about the Messiah being born of a virgin. Isaiah chapter 7:14 was completely molested. I don't know of another way to say it. These are not mistakes. That's what I want people to understand. Matthew did not misconstrue what it says in Isaiah. These were deliberate shenanigans. That means the Hebrew text was altered. It's not just the word virgin isn't there, rather the word Alma is there. The articles were changed. The name of the person or people who are to call him Emmanuel all changed. It's ripped out of context. It's Matthew, in a very strange sense, is largely responsible for the Jewish rejection of Christianity, meaning Matthew is going to do this not only here, but all over his gospel, because Matthew uses fulfillment citations that we don't find really in other gospels. And the fulfillment citations are all scandalous. And as a result, there's no doubt that thousands of untold numbers of people just wouldn't even go near the Christian teachings because of these scandalous alterations. So So therefore, it's completely irrelevant. We do have genealogies. I have a genealogy in my family. I'm not from the Davidic house. I'm from the tribe of Aaron. That's given from father to son, handed down. I happen to be a descendant of Eli, the high priest, and that's how genealogies are affirmed. But what we find in Matthew is scandalous. Luke is also very troubling, but in a different way.
Just a little follow-up. How do you all, at least the Israelis in Israel, determine lineage? If, say, an Israeli woman marries a non-Israeli, would there be a lineage ascribed?
Okay, so we can't use the word
Okay.
Israeli because we have many Israelis
So
that are
Jew
not Jewish. We have
marrying
Israeli
a
Arabs.
non-Jew.
So that could not happen in Israel.
Okay.
I'm talking about in
In
Israel. In Israel, a Jew, I mean, you could perform the ceremony. It would not be the marriage would not be recognized by the state of Israel. Now, if a Jew and a non-Jew got married somewhere else legally in another country, so because Israel is a signature to the Geneva Accords, it would recognize that marriage. And a Jew is forbidden to marry outside of the faith. So for us, it's not a happy thing, but the marriage is accepted by the state of Israel if it happens outside of the Jewish state. But the Jewishness of the child would then be determined by the mother, not by the father. So if the mother was a Jewish woman, then that child would be regarded as Jewish. Conversely, if the father was Jewish and the mother not Jewish, then that child would not be recognized as Jewish here in Israel. Of course, that child one day can grow up and convert, but that's a different matter.
So you're saying that if a Jewish man marries a non-Jewish lady outside of Israel, would that child have a lineage at all?
No. So I want to just repeat that. So I want to make sure I understood your question. You're asking me if a Jewish man marries a non-Jewish woman in Cyprus, as an example, which is very, very close, an hour flight. And then they fly back and their marriage is recognized by Israel because Israel is a signature to the Geneva Accords. So that child status would be not Jewish, and if you're not Jewish, then you can't be of any tribe. So you can't even be a candidate for tribe identification if you're not Jewish. So then you can't even. Then there's nowhere to go. So the child is not Jewish. It doesn't make a difference what the tribe the father is from. You have to be Jewish for even to apply what we find in the book of Numbers. One other point, there are two other caveats, because I think your viewers will just enjoy this. So today, in practically speaking, there are two issues that should be raised. The one that is most important is that the only tribe that it is very important to know, to be aware of, if you're a member of that tribe, and for everybody else to know about, is if you're a descendant of the tribe of Levi. Okay? Because if you're a descendant of the tribe of Levi in Hebrew, and especially a descendant of Aaron, which I am, so that means you're a Kohen, you're a priest. And then there are many, many laws that apply to you. For example, I could not marry a divorced woman in Israel as a priest. I'm just telling you. So I know this sounds odd to people outside the country, but a Kohen cannot marry a woman who is divorced. So I could not come into contact with a dead body. I couldn't. When I went to my uncle's funeral, I had to keep a clear distance of 4 cubits from his body. So there are many laws that apply to kohanim, that's plural, for priests. If you're from the tribe of Levi but a descendant of Moses of blessed memory, so there are some laws that apply to you when you're called up to the Torah, same thing with Kohen. So there are all sorts of laws that apply to a priest and any descendant of the tribe of Levi today. And we're aware of who we are. And moreover, at the scientists at the University of New Mexico have charted the DNA, the Y chromosome, of Jewish priests and found us all to have a unique marker on our Y chromosome, which is conveyed only by the father. And they can identify a priest by DNA because we're all from the same father. Roughly 3,300 years ago, you could trace that, and they've done that. There's a lot of scientific literature on that. That said, if you're not from the tribe of Levi, so then there really are no unique, distinct laws that apply to you today. Now, when the Messiah comes, the laws that we find at the end of the book of Ezekiel, in terms of what part of the land of Israel is your tribe, that really does come into play in a very big way, in a very important way. But it does not come into play whether you're from the tribe of Judah, which would be the vast majority of Jewish people. It's a very large tribe. And more germane, it is the tribe that survived the Assyrian Empire. It was Judah that was preserved through a miracle in the days of Hezekiah in the 14th year of his reign, when the Assyrian army was destroyed after carrying off the 10 northern tribes. So a significant part of the tribe of Benjamin is with us today. But it's less likely that Jews who are from Judah, there are many who do. I have many friends who are not only from the tribe of Judah, but they're from the house of David. My great-grandmother was from the house of David. It has nothing to do with me. She just was. Some people are aware of their dynasty, particularly if it's Davidic. But right now, there would be no practical application for this. We're told also in the end of 2 Chronicles that there were many Jews during the siege, actually going back to before the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel, who were from the other 10 tribes who came down to the southern kingdom. We don't know how many, but so there's all the tribes are really represented among us. So the only people who really know who are very aware of this, and everybody knows who these families are. This is not like people know my dynasty very well. It's a very well-established family tree. So people know who we are. And when it comes to Kohanim, priests, and Levites, and for other Jews, some may be aware of it. I mean, I can go into this further. There are Jews who come from Uzbekistan, certain areas, whether it's predominantly the tribe of Benjamin, but there are no unique laws today before the Messiah comes that would apply. So this is not it does not change the way someone would live their life if they were from the tribe of Judah or Benjamin today.
So just to recap, you did say that if a Jewish woman marries a non-Jewish man and had a child, would that child have a tribal assignment at all?
No.
Okay.
No, and this becomes a scandal in the Bible. Yeah, this actually becomes scandalous in the Bible. We have cases like this, very famously in the Torah, where you have a Jewish woman who was from the tribe of Dan, who married an Egyptian. I don't know if she married him, but she had a baby with an Egyptian man. It led to a nightmare, a very bad situation Very bad situation. But this child had no tribe. And then, now what happened under those circumstances was that, so if I hope this is not too complicated. So in that case, if a Jewish woman, who, let's say her father's from the tribe of Dan, she unfortunately marries outside the faith, but that child is still Jewish, but has no tribe identity. But where does the child live? So there was some expectation that the mother's tribe would look after such children. It's not that they were entitled to a portion of that tribe, but it was conventional. It was proper behavior for a tribe to accommodate children who didn't have a tribe, to at least give them a home, a place to live. Not because they were entitled to it legally, but it was just the right thing to do. Dan didn't do it, and it caused that child eventually to blaspheme against God, which was a terrible nightmare, and the consequences would go on for a very long time. This was a very, very serious matter. So the child would be Jewish but have no tribe identity. We have quite a number of cases like this in Tanakh. Now, let's say she has a little girl, so that girl doesn't have a tribe. But then that little girl grows up, who's the daughter of a Jewish mother and a non-Jewish father, has no tribe, but she then marries someone from the tribe of Judah. Then her son then is a tribe from the tribe of Judah, and then it's all fixed. The problem really should only last. It's not a problem really. It shouldn't be a problem, but whatever it is repaired as soon as that child marries someone from another tribe, and then the grandchild of the mother then is the grandchild of the child. Then has the grandmother then has a grandchild who is from that tribe, depending if it's a boy or a girl.
Which brings us back one full circle to your point. If Jesus is deemed to be by virgin birth, he would just be a Jew. He won't even be a Jew.
No, look, let me. It's like if I was Santa Claus. I mean, we're kind of getting into crazy world. We say he's a little virgin. I want to. Well, it's not hypothetical, because if he's born a virgin, then we're living in a cartoon. We're living in crazy world. I want to make a theological point that's a little different. I want to spin this differently. If Jesus was born to a virgin and was the Son of God, okay, and was God in the flesh, I want Christians to think about the following. What is the big deal that he never sinned? And if I was born to a virgin and was the Son of God, I wouldn't sin either. Was Jesus really expected to go to a naughty place in Thailand, and he had to resist the temptation? Really? Really? I mean, what's the big deal if you're born to a virgin? I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain. This is all very silly. How would he be any more righteous than a rock? If we were born of a virgin, this is all pagan mythology, and it's dualistic. But if we play this out, if I was born to a virgin and I'm the Son of God and I'm born that way, so I'm like God in the flesh, so in what way am I a righteous person? By not sinning. Anybody could do that. You just have to be born of a virgin and be the Son of God. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to play in this game and play by the rules. If we play by these rules, then you see that the whole Christian theology collapses. Then Jesus isn't righteous. He isn't any more righteous than an iguana. I mean, the whole point is that you really have free will. The whole point is that you have a physical body and a spiritual soul, and there's tension, and you have free will to choose good over evil or to reject a relationship with God and choose sinfulness. Jesus couldn't reject God because in Christian theology, he is God. He can't do it. And therefore, the silliness of this theology, this is the point that's important, is that big deal. Anybody who's supposedly born of a virgin and is perfect, that person isn't righteous. What makes a person righteous is to resist the temptation and be loyal to God despite that they feel lured towards sin. That is what everyone should think about. Why is Jesus righteous for not sinning any more than I'm righteous for not marrying an apple tree? It's silly.